What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the meta update builds video. And if you see my last video going over the map and the team comp updates, you'll know that I tried to make this into one single video, but it was just too long. So here is the meta update build video section of it. So again, if I talk about how like this is a long video or whatever, it still is still like a 40-minute video, but trust me, it was 2 hours, over 2 hours long. So you can thank me for it being a little bit, more concise with 2 videos, but yeah, just ignore that. But with that, let's just go ahead and get into the video. All right, here we are with the builds. Now, like I said before, not a lot of changes, in my opinion, to make it to where like the whole landscape has changed. So we're like, oh shit, we got these new items, we got these new glyphs, or the idea that we can build all sorts of glyphs. Things change. No, not really. From what I've seen and what I've played, pretty much play the same as before last season. Just, the small tweaks that they made in season 11, although there was a lot of things that were changing, not really too fundamentally changing a lot of the things that's happening here. So like I said, not a lot of changes, so beware of that. I'm gonna try to not really zip through these expediently to where like I'm like missing shit. I'm gonna try to go through these because I was actually debating whether or not I wanted to split this video just for time's sake, because we're already at 45 minutes. But I decided not to. I decided to make it a whole video and try to make it to where it's like right around that 1 hour mark, a little bit over. But enough stalling. We're going into the mages first. I think I'm gonna go mages, hunter, maybe guardian, warrior, assassin. Either way, mages and hunters are going to be the easier ones to build. They basically build very similar to last season. Not a lot of changes, not a lot of alternate items you can go. There's basically a select narrow path for them. So if you're ever a mage hunter main, this is going to be very easy for you. We're going to go ahead and build, structure this pretty well, looking at notes as well here, so you can understand, make things more clear cut. I'm gonna go ahead and build the old build just so we have a reference to what it was before, or very similar to it. Is Chronos spelled with a there? Jesus. Chronos, you had Desolation. You either had that or you had Divine. Divine was another item here you would build. Either or. Ob Shard. Then you have your Soul Reaver. Oops. Then you had your rod. Building which rod depends on which god you are. For Yu Huang, I think Calamitous Rod is better because he one-shots. But, building the last rod. So this is what you build Sands of Time. Chronos into Spear if you don't need anti-heal. If you need anti-heal, go in Divine. Ob Shard, Soul Reaver, and then you go into Calamitous. And then obviously your last item would be a Timeline, because it's just such a good item after they buffed it. And that would basically be your build. Timeline would go here, obviously, but that would be your build, basically. Now, this build I still think is very good. It gives you basically everything you need. But there are some few changes that I would like to add. There's basically like 3 main builds that I've come up with. This is old build, still very good build if you want to build it. Like I said, not a lot of things changed here, so this build is still really good. But there are some small min-max things that I've been seeing that I actually like, either by me playing them or by watching them. So let's go ahead and reset this. All right, so I did reset it. We're gonna go with Sands of Time, Chronos. I think this is one of your build path. Actually, let me put this here. All right, that should be a little bit more readable. This is your first build. I'm gonna try to do this for every single mage class, or for every single class, but this is for your mages. So next item I've been seeing with Book of Thoth changes and stacking changes. Surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, I like going Book of Thoth second here. I've tested it a little bit, and it's a little bit faster stacking Book of Thoth second item, just because you do more damage the later the game goes, meaning you're stacking book faster. So, as you know, by book, it stacks based on, as you can see here, maybe I can, no, it won't let me. But basically, it stacks off of damage. So every 350 damage, I think, or is it 225? 350 Whisper Trans. 225 damage dealt to gods, you get 1 stack I'm sorry, that's for gods. Is it 450? For minions. 450 for minions, 225. Double the damage for gods is how you're going to get more stacks. Or the damage that you do to gods, it'll take less damage to do to them to get more stacks. So double the stacks, basically. So with, just intuitively, if your character scales, the later the game goes with this damage, either that to minions or gods, then it just makes sense to build Book of Thoth a little bit later, because you're going to be doing more damage. You're going to be getting those stacks online a little bit faster, which means that you don't need to build it first item, because you're going to be not min-maxing it to its highest potential. I think that it's not the most significant thing, and it'll depend on the game because of, you know, different variables, the team comps, how much damage you can do. I mean, if you have a hunter that's also clearing wave, that might be an impact as well. But generally, it's a little bit faster, meaning you can min-max your book second item from what I've tested. You can even do third, too, but I think that's stretching it a little bit. I think Book of Thoth is super good, your second item. You basically get both of best of both worlds. You get infinite mana, you get cooldown here, you have 30% cooldown already. And I just think Book of Thoth is really good right here. It gives you flat pen as well for some reason, which is always cool, I guess. I've been seeing Warlocks. I don't think it's that great unless you're going to go on gods that can be kind of like hybrid, sort of like your Baba Yaga, for example, especially with their stacking passive. But Book of Thoth is basically going to be your slot here. After that, we're going to go into an Obshard. I think Obshard obviously is a general build, keep in mind. Obshard is still very good. Its passive is so fucking good. Gives you all the percent pen you really need, and you can still go more if you want to. Then we got Reaver. And then we have Rod. Rod of Tahuti. On Yuhong, we're going to go there. And that's basically it. I mean, you're substituting your Book of Thoth for your flat pen. And it gives you more damage. It gives you infinite mana, basically. So I think Book of Thoth here is better in my opinion. Obviously, you'd go Timeline. And that would be your second build. I mean, you have other items that you can go instead. I mean, Divine, obviously. Divine, you need to go here if you really need anti-heal, obviously. Then you have like Staff of Mirrodin being a good item as well. Because with this build, I don't think you get capped cooldown. You get up to 30%. So, you know, if you wanted to go Mirrodin instead of Soul Reaver or Obshard, although I don't know why you would want to do that for Obshard, but instead of going Mirrodin for Reaver or even Calamitous, Rod of Tahuti, for example, or just Rod of Tahuti, Mirrodin is a very good option here as well. Still got Deso, but I like Book of Thoth better here. But I mean, you can still go Deso, so we're just going to go ahead and put this here. But that's basically it for this build. Not much else here. So this is going to be your first build. Like I said, not a lot of things change here. The only thing that changes is the second item going Book of Thoth, and that's just because of the stacking changes. So this will be your first new build. All right, we got into our second build here. This one's going to actually prioritize more of building Book of Thoth first. Like I said, it's better to build it later, in my opinion, but the significance in it isn't like the craziest. If you don't want to min-max, you want your Book of Thoth as soon as possible, I think this build allows you to do that. But basically, you know, Book of Thoth gets online roughly around the same time from my testing and what from the devs have said too. So you're not really losing much of anything. It's basically the same. Just building it second and min-max is a little bit faster, and third as well. Like I said, you're kind of pushing it at that point, but with this build, you go Book of Thoth, then you either go Deso Divine, very similar to the other one, depending on whether or not you have anti-heal. You go either or. We're just going to go Deso for this instance. After that, we're going to go into a Mirrodin, Staff of Mirrodin. And this build is really good too. It's my preferred build for gods who are good with Mirrodin, excluding the tablet build, which we'll talk about here soon for our third build. So gods like Persephone and Cuckoo, for example, are really good with this. And this build is pretty standard, as you're going to be going book first, then some flat pen or anti-heal, and then into pen. And although you don't truly min-max book second item, the difference isn't that huge, like I said earlier. But after that, very, very standard stuff. We're just gonna go into Soul Reaver. Even after like the small changes here, you're not really changing much of anything. Like I said earlier, the only difference here is you're not building Rod. I'm sorry, you're not building Obshard, or at least you don't need to, because you do get 20% pen, you get Soul Reaver, stuff like that. Everything you have really. Staff of Mirrodin is really what helps you with this passive. But like I said earlier, you can still go Ob Shard if you want that pen. Ob Shard actually goes really hard here instead of that Soul Reaver spot, because with this you get max percent pen, you get 40 with this, and then obviously with its passive on Ob Shard it does stack. So on one of your first ability casted, so whatever ability you cast first within 10 seconds that it's refreshed, you get 60% pen on that one ability. So you can also, if you want Reaver instead, which will actually kind of be better in my opinion, you could go Soul Reaver and Ob Shard, as the passive of Soul Reaver is super good. Again, you're not going to be able to get the Rod Tahuti passive. I'm sorry, glyph, but you know, having 50% pen plus its with its passive, of course, with Ob Shard, you're only getting 30% on its base if it's on cooldown. Plus Soul Reaver, I think this is a super good build. Obviously, I think, you know, more often than not, you want to build this if they have anti-heal. Otherwise, I don't really know. I think Deso is fine, but you don't need it. Still very good though, gives you cooldown and everything, so you can still go. But this is the build that I've been seeing a lot. Obviously, you go timeline, especially on like a god like Thoth too. He's very good with this build. I've been seeing that as well. Also, timeline is just too good, and that would be your build for this one. But yeah, I mean, you can also finagle this build as well too. I mean, like if you wanted to go Chronos, I mean, this is kind of just going into the other builds that we're talking about. They're all basically adjacent in terms of what they do and what you can exchange. Like I said, you can build, you can go Chronos instead of Hook if you wanted to for more cooldown. But these are just options. I think Ob Shard is a little bit more important here. So instead of putting it as a substitute, I think you do either, you go obviously, sorry, get this, Jesus. Okay. You go into, you know, your Sands of Time, your Book of Thoth, your, let's just say Divine, Mirrodin, and then obviously you just choose between these three items which you want more. I mean, if they have more health, if they're building more health related items, then obviously you would go Soul Reaver Ob Shard, or you could go Ob Shard Soul Reaver if you wanted to, depending on what you want. If they're building more just protections, then obviously you would go Ob Shard Tahuti, and then I think that's really good. I think going Mirrodin, your third item, is kind of necessary, especially if you go Divine Rune, because it gives you that cooldown. That's also one specific part of this item that's really good. It's not letting me see it, but trust me, it has cooldown. And so if you're not building Deso, then it's going to be super more important to go this your third item, because it does give you cooldown. But other than that, that's going to be your second mage build. Oh, I actually forgot to put the third build. All right, let's just pretend that that didn't happen. Third build was always there. There we go. All right, next up we have our, why am I thinking of book? Tablet build. We have our tablet build, very similar to what it was before, except now with stacking items, this is kind of very like straightforward. There's no like, oh, do I build book first or do I build tablet first? There's certain situations where you could build either or first. Now, tablet's going to be built first. With Book of Thoth being actually just better to build second item, and being a lot easier to stack consistently throughout the game instead of getting stacks. Building it later is going to be even better. So I think building tablet first, especially in Joust, seeing this is a shorter game mode, is going to be super important. Now, I wouldn't build this on Yu Huang. But this build is good for those guys that stack tablet better, like Agni, Tiamat, Merlin, and Morgan, for example, Morgan Le Fay. So that's going to be super important on them. I think these are going to be your go-to builds, especially if you're going up against tanks. If you're not building this and you're going up against tanks, you're kind of trolling. So you're going to want to make sure you build tablet and book. Now, of course, on Yu Huang, you can, but mainly it's for those guys that can get those stacks on tablet. I don't think we're in a meta where everyone builds tablet yet. I think the item's in a pretty decent spot right now. Not OP like it was before. And then after this, there's a lot of options you can go here. My preferred here, depending on your god, actually is a Mirrodin. It is super expensive, like I said. Or I guess I didn't say it, but Mirrodin is pretty expensive here. So you can honestly go Deso here as well if you want more cooldown or something like that, because you don't get a lot of cooldown. Either way, Mirrodin or Sphere Deso gives you that cooldown. I'm gonna go ahead and put this here. Mirrodin, and then obviously your Ob Shard if you want that for your anti-heal. Oh, not Ob Shard. Divine Rune. Divine Rune gives you the fucking anti-heal, not Ob Shard. So these three items will be for your third item here. Fourth item, I guess, if you want to be specific. One thing I will say is that the only thing is the anti-heal kind of messes this build up, as you'll need to go it early on your build, which is doable, but you don't get cooldown until your 5th item. So it's a heavy trade-off, I think. But it's still pretty decent, as you now can build book 3rd item, and it's, so I still think it's very good to go. It's just if you need divine for the anti-heal, it's just gonna suck because you're only gonna have 10% cooldown up until your 3rd item. In which case it's gonna suck. But you're gonna need to go like a Mirrodin after that, for example. Like if you need to go anti-heal, for example, you'd go divine, Mirrodin, and then you would go your last item. Another item I wanted to point out is breastplate. God, this item is super good with glyphs now, being able to buy as much glyphs as you want. I actually went this build on Outwash, this exact build right here. A god like Morgan goes really hard with this. Now I wouldn't really build it on like an Agni, but I mean, you can build this on Tiamat. Tiamat's pretty good with breastplate. This gives you all the cooldown you need. You get 30% cooldown, you have your tablet, book, your tanky, especially against your warriors and your assassins. This item's gonna be super good to flex pick into this 3rd slot. So my preferred is either breastplate, Mirrodin, or Deso. Divine, obviously, you're just gonna go on a case-by-case basis. After that, I think going into an Ob Shard. And then last item, Soul Reaver. I think Soul Reaver is really good here as well because it stacks with your tablet, as getting more mana will make your tablet do more damage. So Soul Reaver is kind of a must here. You can honestly go back and forth with the Ob Soul Reaver. And then that would be like my general build here. Obviously, you would switch your breastplate for these 3 items. And then depending on it, if you need to go anti-heal, then you would have to go. This is why I think anti-heal messes this up. Still a good build with your tab and Book of Thoth, but if you needed to go divine here for your anti-heal, your next item can either be your Desolation, your Staff of Mirrodin, or Book of Thoth. I think your 5th item needs to be cooldown, as mages spam out abilities, and you need to be able to spam out your abilities. So if you don't have cooldown, you're not gonna be able to do that. So if you're going against physical gods, you go your breastplate and then like Soul Reaver. Like this build would be really good. And then if you didn't have tanks and it was like squishies, you'd go Deso here, then go into a Soul Reaver. So this would be pretty decent. You get triple flat pen. But more likely than not, I like the Mirrodin route. Going Mirrodin after this, and then going into a Soul Reaver, you get a little bit of percent pen. It kind of makes up for the Ob Shard a little bit. But basically, breastplate, Mirrodin are going to be your top choices. Deso, still pretty good. Just for the cooldown though. Ob Shard is pretty good. And then another item that I like is Ethereal Staff. I did build this on my Outwash build. Outwash game. This is a really good flex pick into your last item if you wanted that as well. But that's basically your build here. So my preferred, obviously, if I were to go. No, I don't want anti-heal. I hate anti-heal into this build, but has to be a thing. As breastplate, Ob Shard, and Soul Reaver. That's basically what I like the most. You can obviously change it for E-Staff or Mirrodin and stuff like that. But basically, your bread and butter here is your Sands, Tablet, Thoth into some type of cooldown. And then Soul Reaver, I think, is really important here. You can flip. You can skip your Ob Shard for other things like Mirrodin or E-Staff, for example. But that's really your only flex pick here. I think everything else here, these 2 items are going to be your flex pick. Sands of Time, Tablet, Book of Thoth, Soul Reaver are going to be super vital. But that is your tablet build, and that is actually all your mages build. So we're going to actually move on to the hunter build. All right, then we got our hunters build. This video is gonna be a little bit longer than I would like. We had an hour, so it is what it is, but we're gonna try to go through this. As you can see, old hunter no crit build. If you guys remember back when I did the hunter builds, the build path follows like, see if I can remember this. Griffin Wing was your first item. Then you'd go into your Cal. After which you'd go into your Aussie. Then you would go in to either your, I think it was either Oboe Xe, but I think it may have been Xe. You go into your Xe slash Oboe, that's what it was. It was either or these items at your 4th item in. Then you'd go Dom, Then you would go Kins. Oops. And then you'd have a flex pick for your Silver Branch, because this was still a good item at that time. And that would be your build here. And then you would basically sell your Leather Cowl for your Silver Branch. One thing I will say, this build is still pretty good. I still like this build. It's a pretty decent build. Still follows up, like I said, not a lot of changes that make it significant. Still a very good. I don't like this build as much. I think one of the big things here is that I don't think Oboe is that good of an item to be built this early anymore. Let me actually just build this here. Let's go this, that, and that. I think Griffin Wing is a very good item. Gives you great stats. Very super easy to get online, super cheap. I think it's a luxury item though. I don't think it's, I mean, its passive is really good. It helps you pass, or your auto is a lot easier, but like I said, it's a luxury item. I don't think it's a good item. I think it's a waste of a space, an item for especially a very important build as a hunter. It's sort of a wasted slot that you could have for more pen, even crit, for example, or even, you know, other items that I think would have more impact, like an Oboe, for example. So I don't like this as much. But other than that, and obviously you wouldn't sell your Leather's Cowl anymore. You would go into probably Leader's Cowl. I think Leader's Cowl, even though it's not the greatest in Joust, it's still better than Hunter's right now. I think you go into Leader's Cowl is basically what you do there. But other than that, not too bad. Oboe, starter item, and Griffin Wing I would change a little bit, but that's basically that build. If you still want to go this, it's still fine. It's just, there's a better build here, which I will go into right now. All right, this is the new build. Now this is going to be, I think, your best build to go. Let me just build it, actually. So you want to do is you want to go into Cal. I think Cal's first pickup. You don't need to go Griffin Wing anymore. I think you go Aussie. I think you can pick up Crimson. Crimson is a fine item. You can flex pick this into, let me just put it down here just because you can if you want to. I just don't think the passive is as good. The passive is fine. It's just, it doesn't really do too much early game, I don't feel like. It's 150 gold more than Aussie. And I think the passive that Aussie gives you for Joust is just better than Crimson. It gives you more lifesteal with it being buffed so much. It's now 60%, so like it's not even that hard to get down to proc the Aussie passive. I just think it's better. Crimson isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. So it's 50 power, 20 attack speed, 15% lifesteal. You get all of the stuff that you need. I just think Aussie does it a better, more affordable, and a little bit better job at what a hunter wants, which is lifesteal. Not necessarily the shield passive. But still a decent item. I think going into Xe Glyph, either going into Envenomed Executioner for anything with heavy shield, or if they need anti-heal, or Ferocious Executioner. This is still a fucking busted item as well. Then this is basically all you need. That's one of the biggest things that I said with hunters. With hunters not doing as much damage with their autos, I don't think, which we'll go into later with the crit build, I don't think Demon Blade is the best build anymore. It just doesn't have that oomph that the Executioner I think brings. With this build, this one has no crit. Next up, I like going into Dominance here. Following that, we have our Kins. Kins is gonna be super important, especially in this meta, as there's gonna be a lot more tanks to shred. And then you have your Oboe, Odysseus Bow / your Silver Branch. So we're on Hashiman, for example. This is an example god, but we're here already. This build, I'd actually, well, let me put down Leader's Cowl. Leader's Cowl, this will be your upgrade. Leather's Cowl into Aussie, into Executioner, into Dominance, Kins. And then for Hachi, and actually going to Silver Branch here because of his 2. His 2 gives him attack speed when you're underneath it. So I think you being able to stack that with Silver Branch will allow you to have more impact than Oboe. You can still go Oboe here, for example, if you wanted Oboe, you really wanted it. I think this is your go-to build. Now, I'm going to go into crit, but crit just isn't as good as I think it was before. So with this build, this allows you to sort of, there's so many things that counter got with the hunters right now. Like I said, Midgard, Thorns, Spectral, Breastplate of Vigilance. And so this build right here is not going to be a direct counter to any of those items except Spectral, because you don't have crit. Now this build still shreds your tanks. So regardless of whether or not you build crit, it won't rely. I mean, Spectral isn't the greatest item in the world, but reducing your autos is still not as is not cool. So when you have this build with Exy, Dom, Kins, and then you're gonna obviously go into your ferocious or your envenomed executioner, whichever one you want, that being this one, anti-heal and anti-shield if you have more of that. Ferocious if you just want to, they don't have that obviously, and you want to do more damage with ferocious. I think this item just shreds your tanks. And then not only that, like I said, with crit way back in the day, or not way back, I guess last year, not too far away, but the build that you go with a hunter with crit would be really good against your squishies, because you can delete your squishies and you actually still did a lot of damage as your crit even when they build Spectral. But with all that being said, all the items that they can build, you're still doing less damage with your crit. So I think reducing protections is going to be good against the tanks, but you're still, compared to crit, you're not going to do as much damage to your squishies. But you still do a fuck ton of damage with this build. I mean, believe it or not, this build fucking smacks against this build right here. Don't mind these distractions. But this build right here, man, I mean, you can still fuck your squishies up, man. The enemy squishies doing so much damage with your autos that regardless of it, I think this is just a generalized build that you can always build into tanks and squishies, and you don't have to worry about too much of anything else besides crit. Now, like I said, hunters are still going to be hard to play because they're mid-late game tier, but I mean, this build sort of makes it to where you don't have to think about too much of anything. You still fucking smash them with this late game build. So this is going to be your go-to. This is my favorite build actually out of all of them, even though I still love crit and think it's still okay, not as good as it once was, but this is your main hunter build. All right, as you can see, we got our old hunter crit build. A lot of you might know this one. You go Cal. It's actually not. This actually was the most recent meta build. Aussie. Demon Blade. It's your second. What was the next item? I think it was Dom. Dom was pretty good right here. Into your Deathbringer, because Envenom Deathbringer doesn't exist anymore. And then you would go Xe/Kins, whichever one you wanted more. I know, crazy, building Xe this fucking late, that's kind of troll, right? With its new glyphs. So you go Lettuce Cow, Aussie, Demon Blade, Dom, Deathbringer, and you go either or. You go either or with Xe or Kins. A lot of the time you'd pick up Xe and then you'd go, I think, Leader's Cow, if I remember, or either or. I can't remember, it was Hunter's Cow, I can't remember. But this would be your basic build here. I don't like this build anymore. This is the only build I think really changes a lot, like a fuck ton. Where to start? I don't like Demon Blade here because you know, like I said earlier, with Xe being so good right now, you don't do as much damage with your passive not being a thing anymore, class passives not being a thing anymore. So you just don't hit as hard with Demon Blade being right here, on top of the fact that, you know, Spectral being annoying. So really, this just kind of blows right here. Xe right here, I don't really like at all. Last item is Troll now. So Xe being one of the best, if not the best glyphs right now, with Ferocious and or Envenomed. I mean, it's just, you have to go the second item, I feel like. And that being last is no-go. Deathbringer, I think, sucks for hunters. Like both of the upgrades, even the other one that gives you over 100%, it sucks. It fucking sucks. The other one is not even for you. I think it sucks. Only if you're not going over 100% crit. And in order to only go over 100% crit, you need arrow, unless you're going to go rage. But that's kind of troll for a hunter right now. You need attack speed. So I don't think Deathbringer, I think a Deathbringer, getting rid of Envenom Deathbringer kind of nerfs it for hunters. And yeah, I mean, I just don't think Deathbringer is the play here anymore. It's too expensive for nothing really much for the glyph, unless you're going into what is it, over 100% crit, because I don't think you get much of the passive for 3,500 gold. You better be going over 100% attack speed. So this build is just not it. Obviously, your leathers into Aussie, Dom's still good, Kins is really good, obviously, but I just don't like this, so I would not go this build anymore. I don't think it's that great right now, but we're gonna go into the more better crit item. All right, let's get into this new crit build. Like I said earlier, I think crit is in an interesting place, especially for Joust because it's so counterable. So I think crit is fine. It's just not in the greatest position right now because you have to worry about so much of being a hunter. And because Deathbringer isn't that great anymore. So, I mean, you can still go this crit build. I like the other build better, but this is probably the better crit build in my opinion. So we want to go Cal here. It's just a little bit of changes here. Like I said earlier, that I highlighted earlier. You want your Aussie. We're going to go ahead and put Crimson down here if you want it. Still don't think it's that great compared to Aussie. What's the next build? Oh, Xe. Xe is just so good. It's too good not to get. You want your lifesteal, then you go into your Xe almost all the time. You need to rush Xe, not only because it's fucking cheap as hell, it's just the best item in the game when it comes to its upgraded glyphs. So you have your Envenomed, or you have your Ferocious here, depending on what you want. Let's see, then you want to go, this is when you want to go Demon Blade. I think Demon Blade's still a good crit item. I think you just need to delay it a little bit, and then I think that this build will be a lot better for that. After that, I like going into a Boomerang. Boomerang is a super underrated item. It never had any changes. I don't know why this item fell out of the meta. I guess because, I know why, because Demon Blade just got better. They buffed the fuck out of Demon Blade, but Boomerang is still a solid item. It's passive. That's what they reworked it. Still really good. It's still a super cheap item. Gives you all the crit really you need. It gives you attack speed, which is really good. I think Boomerang is such an underrated item here. And then your last item will be either your Kins. Sorry, I keep putting this there. Or your Silver Branch. I put Silver Branch here as an option, although I think Kins is just too good right now, especially with tanks. So Silver Branch can be an alternate. I'm not gonna put it as a so in this build I'd pretty much go Kins like all the time, and obviously you'd go into your Leader's Cowl. This is your new crit build. It's not the greatest. I think crit's super meh right now. I have to see more. Obviously everything's subject to change, but this is basically your new crit build in my opinion. I mean, you get 40% crit, which isn't the greatest, but I mean, Deathbringer you're just not going to buy ever. And if you were to buy it, I'll do an honorable mention crit build here, but yeah, this is your new crit build. You get your basically what you need to pay attention to is your lifesteal and your Xe being online first. Then you can go crit if you want to. Obviously you can like hybrid these items. Like you can go Demon Blade and then go into like for a little crit, and then you can go into you want to skip Boomerang. You can go Dominance here and then go Kins, for example. So I can just put that there just to say, but I mean, these are just generalized builds for crit / non-crit items. You can obviously go Boomer or Dom instead of Boomerang if you wanted to. So I mean, it just all depends on what you want on the smaller changes. But this is basically just your cookie cutter crit build in my opinion. So this is your last hunter build, and we're gonna go into the honorable mention, and then we'll go into, we'll see. I don't know yet. All right, we're gonna go super fast in this one. I don't think this one's a viable one as much as it was once before after they nerfed it. I think going, it's basically just 100%, over 100% crit chance. Getting that Deathbringer glyph to give you that extra damage. You would go into Ornate Arrow, obviously, but you know, you go the regular arrow first. I don't really like this build. I think it's a little bit cheesy, but it's still fun if you want to get that online. You got Aussie / Crimson if you want it. Then you would go into an Xe, Executioner. Then you would go Demon Blade, very similar to my other path here. Deathbringer, and this would be your upgraded Devoted Deathbringer. I'm pretty sure most of you already know this one. And then you would go into a Silver Branch. Now you can go Boomerang here if you wanted to, because you know it is Joust, so it's gonna be a little bit hard to get this build online. Super expensive, super late game. But this is your Conquest build that I've been seeing a lot. I think it's changed a little bit because they nerfed it. But you know, this is all the crit chance you need. With the passive of Ornate, you get 81 here, but you should be getting more with this passive. But again, you can go Boomerang here and you get over 100%, plus the Ornate passive, giving you even more crit. if you wanted to, but I think Silver Branch is fine. But yeah, that's basically your crit build. Don't think it's that great, but it's a kind of fun build that you can do with this Devoted Deathbringer. That's really only good for. That is your 100% crit build that I don't think is that viable. All right, now we have our assassin build. We're gonna go over the old assassin build first, which I believe was Warrior's Axe. And then depending on, oh, okay, well that was a big lag spike, whatever. And you know, depending on whether or not you had early mana sustain, which, you know, like Thor for example doesn't have, so a lot of times you would go into an earring, for example, then you would go into a gauntlet just to get some defense in there. Then you would go Jotuns, and then obviously it depends here, but you would go either beat stick or you would go Hydras, depending on what you wanted more of. Obviously, if they had anti-heal, you go Beast Stick. If you wanted Hydras for the mana sustain, you would go there. Then I'd like to go into Serrated, and then you would go into a Heartseeker. Heartseeker. Come on. Heartseeker, and then obviously you had flex picks like Crusher and maybe Titan's Bane. I still think this is a good build. I don't think you need to build this anymore. But if you want to, you can. Let's say that anti-heal, Serrated, Heartseeker. That would be your build basically, and obviously you would go into what is the Warrior's Axe called? Sundering Axe. You go into Sundering Axe for that. I think this build is still good. Not the greatest. I think there are better items here, better things you can do here, but this build is still pretty good. And so we'll go on to the new assassin build here. All right, with the new assassin build, like I said, you didn't need to build mystical anymore because of this one item, which I wouldn't say is controversial, but I think is a lot of people don't like, and that is, I like going into Warrior's Axe first, and then all right, so I had to switch over to Camazotz because I think, I don't know, my frames were dying. Either way, still dying. Damn. Okay, whatever. Is Blackthorn, like I said, it might be, depending on who you are, you might not like this item, but I really like this item. People say it's expensive, but it is pretty expensive. But this gives you everything that you need in its build. It's got mana, it's got your cooldown, and you have health, MP5, depending on how low your mana is, of course, and then you have physical power. I think this item is super good here. And then after that, that's basically where you build your gauntlet. I think one of the items that is super good right now that I would probably change in and out of is Void Shield. I think Void Shield is a very good item you can go here just because you do more damage and all. And it's super good. I mean, even if you go up against team comps that don't have a lot of physical D or physical gods, you can still build this as it, you know, will allow you to do more damage and still be tankier. But more than likely you'll run into a lot of physical gods with warriors and assassins. But if you don't want to, you can go into a gauntlet too. I think going into Warrior's Axe, Blackthorn, gauntlet, and then going into your regular build like your Jotuns, giving you that cooldown. Then going into a item like Brawlers if you want to, or slash Hydras. I think these are all very good items that you can go. And then your last item can either be a Serrated or a Heartseeker. So really not much of a change here, like I said earlier. Basically, assassins do what they do best, and that is be, in Joust at least, be tanky while also dealing out your damage. So you can go in any sorts of fashion into this build. You can go into your Jotuns. You can go into a Serrated, into a Heartseeker if you need more percent pen. Again, you get like 30% pen or 30% CDR with this. If you don't need any more, if you don't need any percent pen, you can go into a Brawlers. Maybe you want to go kill squishies better, you can go that into a Heartseeker. And then obviously, you know, if you're autoing a lot, you can go Hydras, give you that max cooldown, and then you can go into a Heartseeker if you wanted to. So that's, I mean, these are so many options. Obviously, you have your Void Shield here. But again, you don't need Blackthorn as much as I think Blackthorn is good into this build. you can still, you know, go into your regular build, into your gauntlet, Jotuns, and then go into your regular build if you want to. If you want to skip out the Blackthorn, but I personally like Blackthorn a lot. Some other flex picks that I've been seeing that I really like is Trans. Then we have, what's the next item? I'm looking at my notes because I did forget here. Then we have Relic Dagger, actually. Relic Dagger I've been seeing a lot, like on a god like Hunbats. Wink wink to somebody. Then you have Spirit Robe and Mantle. You can actually go build these items on them on your assassin as well too here. I like how they added more room here. Relic Dagger specifically, well, let's go to Trans. Trans is really good into your like second item. Like if you wanted to go instead of Gauntlet, you can go to Trans and you can stack your Trans. This will also be very good. Or really, you could just go into a Jotun's Trans, for example. Let's do that build, actually. You can go into a Jotun's, into a Trans. Let's get rid of Heartseeker right here. And then you can go into an item like Relic Dagger, and then you can go Serrated Heartseeker, for example. And basically, this item right here... sorry, this is cutting in and out. Hopefully it's not. Relic Dagger here is basically for your Blink. Blink is really good on these gods, I think, for being able to have your Blink up, beads up all the time, and Relic Dagger is such a good item there. And then also, honestly, you can get rid of that and go into, you can go from Relic Dagger into a Spirit Robe, Spirit Robe, or you can go into a Mantle, depending on if they have like CC. You can go into Mantle, and then last time it could be Heartseeker. So these are some flex picks that if you wanted to, you can go into your defense item later. But that is going to be your regular assassin new build. All right, now we have our defensive assassin build, which a lot of these guys go like Fenrir. I switched over them just because there's a less strain on my computer, but works out anyways. So we're going to go into a Warrior's Axe. Warrior's Axe is still going to be always good for this. Right now, I mean, it gives more power than fucking magical power, which is kind of crazy to me, in my opinion. I don't know why that's a thing. But similar to the last build, I like going Blackthorn. I think Blackthorn going first item is super good. Like I said, it's expensive. It's not necessary, but I like it. Of course, you can always just substitute it for a Gauntlet. So let's just actually do that, because I know a lot of you don't like Blackthorn, but I do. But you can go into a Gauntlet. Gauntlet Thebes here is still pretty good, or Blackthorn. From there, very similar to what I'm going to be talking about in the Warriors and actually some in the Guardians. I like going Void Shield here. Another thing that you're going to be seeing a lot is there's a lot of flex picks for your defensive tank type god. So Void Shield is going to be very good here, especially on your assassin. This build is basically for more of your selfish type of build rather than like for your team. So it's going to be similar to a warrior. Next up, we're going to go into a Onis. I think Onis is really good. Just having more mitigation, stuff like that. Obviously, you'd build either or first, depending on which team comp has more of that specific character. So if you have more physical gods like a hunter and a warrior you're going up against, and Void Shield is going to be good. If you go up against a magical like Guardian the Mage for enemy team comp, then you go Onis first. After that, because you don't have a lot of cooldown, which is why I like going Blackthorn earlier, is we go into a Pridwin. I think we go into Reverent Pridwin here. Reverent Pridwin, either or. You can go the Explodey one as well. And then last item can be so many things. It can be Stone of Binding, it can be Heartseeker, it can be Spirit Robe, Mantle of the Discord. But for right now, we're just going to put Stone of Binding here. And that is basically your tank build. Actually, I'm not going to put Stone of Binding here. I mean, there's so many things you can do. Heartseeker is going to be here for that. This will be really good here. Now, I'm going to put Blackthorn here just so I can show you guys the build that I like going. It actually makes it to where you're always building something, even after like late game. This is the build that I like to go. So we're going to skip Gauntlet. I like going into Warrior's Axe, Blackthorn, then going straight into defense like Void Shield, Onis, Pridwin. And then I can actually put in a Stone of Binding here. Put Stone of Binding here. I can put Stone of Binding in here. And then at this point, I can sell my Blackthorn's Hammer after you get Sundering. Sundering Axe. After you get Sundering, you can actually sell your Blackthorn for a Heartseeker, and this will actually round out the build to where you sell your Blackthorn, because I don't think late game Blackthorn is all that great. Blackthorn is really just there for your early game pressure and damage and mana and shit like that. So Blackthorn Hammer you can sell for Heartseeker, and that's my preferred build right here. But again, like I said before, you don't need to. You can go Gauntlet. I think you should prioritize a little bit more damage if you are going to do this build, because I think if you go Stone of Binding last, which is good, I think Heartseeker is going to be, and this is for your defense, so like your heavy defense. If you're going to go into, like, let's say you have an assassin, warrior, and a mage, and you want to be tanky but not too tanky, as your warrior will be tanky, or your guardian, for example, if you have a guardian, you can actually skip Gauntlet. Let's rebuild this. You can skip Gauntlet, still can go Blackthorn. I would go Blackthorn, but if you don't want to go Blackthorn, you can just go straight into like a Void Shield Onis, Pridwin, and then by here you can do so many things. You go Stone of Binding, Heartseeker. I meant to put some flex picks here, but you got, let's do damage first after Mantle. You got Mantle, Spirit Robe. You got fucking Jotuns. Jotuns is really good. You got Beat Stick for anti-heal. You got what else you got? You got Serrated if you want percent pen, especially on Fenrir, which is really good. I mean, Jesus, you have fucking Amulet with the upgrade. You got Breastplate. I mean, there's so many things here. Obviously you would just switch them, these ones right here that I'm putting out, you would just switch out for your earlier items. I mean, you got Damaru, my lord. But generally speaking, I think these items are going to want to prioritize. If you feel like if you want to be more tankier, you can actually get rid of Stone of Binding, for example, and you can go into a Jotuns, for example. You can go Jotuns here, cap out your cooldown, you get more damage towards the end. If you need anti-heal, you got Brawlers, you still got 20% cooldown. If you want more percent pen, you got Serrated into Heartseeker, that's for your damage items. If you wanted to be more tanky while also getting cooldown, you can go Mantle into Heartseeker. Or you can go Spirit Robe if you want the passive of Spirit Robe that gives you mitigations. And that's basically your build. These items down here, your Amulet would actually go for your Onis, your Breastplate would go for your Void Shield, and Damaru would go for your Onis as well. So these bottom picks are for like their beginning part of the build, but I mean, these Jotuns, Brawlers, Serrated, Stone of Binding, Mantle, and Spirit Robe are basically for your later part of the build. I think going Void Shield all the time is going to be very, very good, especially in your assassins, defensive wise, because I think that this item is just too good not to go. I mean, you get 10% pen with physical defense, like I said earlier in the build, or earlier in the video. Onis is just super good right now. So I would prioritize this build, either going into Gauntlet if you're like a single assassin, then going into this build path, or you can go into my build path where I go Blackthorn, then into my defensive build, and then, you know, eventually sell Blackthorn for Heartseeker. But yeah, this is basically your build. This is gonna be for future builds in this video. This is basically the summation of all these items right here, are the summation of the idea of how you want to build your warriors and your guardians. So yeah, like I said, just to recap, you can either go Jotuns, or you can either go Blackthorn or Gauntlet here. I think those are really good items, either or. Blackthorn if you want to be have your mana be semi-tanky in the beginning game, have damage too, and then eventually sell for Heartseeker, but you'd go straight into your build after that. Or if you don't want Blackthorn, you can actually get your Gauntlet and then go straight into your build path. Basically the only thing that changes is whether or not you want Blackthorn or Gauntlet in the second slot, and then you would go from there. If you don't want either, then you would just go straight into build like this. If you want Gauntlet, then you would just go into Gauntlet, and then you just go into your regular build, like a Void Shield, Oni, stuff like that. If you want Blackthorn, then you go Blackthorn straight into your damage, or your defense item, and then you go from there. And then obviously you have your flex picks if you want more damage, cooldown, whatever you want here. So if you want that, then this is here as well. But that is going to be your defensive assassin build. All right. So we're gonna go start with the old guard. Oop, that should not that should have an N right there. There we go. We're gonna go into our old guardian build. Before we do that, I want to make sure that you guys understand the old stuff. So we still got You still got your anti-heal. I'm not going to do that, but you got Midgard for your auto attack gods. You got Spectral. This should just be review. And then obviously, not obviously, a new item, which I think is very good right now, is Breastplate of Vigilance. This basically makes it to where enemies are reduced by their basic attack damage by 25% when you cast your ultimate. This is going to be very good on your gods that have, or you're going to be very good against hunters that have a lot of attack speed or they're full built. You can ult on top of like Spectral, for example, or Midgard / Spectral. You can actually do a lot here. I just want to point that out before we go in, because I think this item hasn't been talked about before, that I think is really good on Guardians right now. But we're going to go ahead and get into the build. We're going to go, and this is an old build, so this will be the most recent. So I think 10.12 is my recent meta update build. If you're coming back to where from, oops, destroying my desk. If you came back from the old Guardian, how to build Guardians build, this will be a little bit different than what you see, but this was, make sure you watch my meta update vids. This will definitely help. But we have Sands of Time. Then we go into a either a mystical, or if you don't need to go mystical, you need to at least, you go into Gauntlet. And then you would go either into a Oni's. I'm sorry, not Oni's. That would have been a little bit longer ago. That would have been before. Genji's was really good at this point. So you'd either go into Genji's, or you would go into a Glad Shield. So either or. So you go either Sands of Time, into Gauntlet, into Genji's if you're going up against Magical, or you'd go up to Glad Shield. And obviously Genji's going to be switched with Oni's or Shoguns at that time. Glad Shield was pretty good here as well. And then you go into a Relic Dagger. Relic Dagger was really good here, gave you cooldown as well. And then from here you'd go into Pridwin. This is just general builds. You'd go into Pridwin, and then you'd go into a Stone of Binding or a an E-Staff, for example. This was your general build that you could basically go on any god. Now for Cabrakan, just to point it out, because I'm ADHD as fuck, I'd like to go Manticore Spikes on him, even though we're not doing a fucking Cabrakan thing. Manticore Spikes is super good on him as well, so I'd actually go that here instead of your Glad or Genji's. I'd actually just go for Manticore's, Relic Dagger, Pridwin, Stone of Binding / E-Staff. But this was your general build path that you would go last season. And I still think it's relatively good. I just think that the changes that are going to be made is you're never going Mystical Earring anymore. You don't need it. And then you would either go, you'd be prioritizing more of your the build with glyphs. I think glyph builds are better now with Breastplate and Amulet. Either that, or you would go Oni's into Void Shield, or Damaru. That's the only thing. But this build is still pretty solid. I mean, most of the items like Relic Dagger, Pridwin, Stone of Binding are still solid. Gauntlet and Sands are obviously there. I think the changes are going to be with the magical and physical defense in terms of your glyphs and whether or not you wanted like a Void Shield or something like that. But let's go ahead and get into those new builds. All right, we already have this build in here because this is the second time I tried to record this and it just stopped recording because I put a hotkey on the wrong fucking place. Anyways, this is your build. So not really much changes a lot. You still build your Sands of Time, you still go into your Gauntlet of Thebes, super core here, and then either one of these items, either go Breastplate of Determination or Amulet of Stronghold. I think with Guardians being Guardian trying to help out your team, I think items that have, you know, Amulet of Stronghold with its passive, or just having Breastplate of Determination to help you do or stay alive with its passive of Determination is going to be super important. Not only that, you can buy as many glyphs as you want, which means going Eldritch Dagger, your third item, is going to be your next play. After this, I think you either build Breastplate of Determination or Amulet to make this strong. Breastplate either being going up against two physical gods, say a hunter and assassin, and you want more physical deed than magical, or Amulet of Stronghold if they have like a mage and a guardian. You do want to prioritize that more. And then you go into your Eldritch Dagger. This item's just so good. It makes your relics on infinite cooldown, plus its passive gives you 15% more, 15, not 50, 15% more protections when you use a relic, and you're always going to be using relics as guardians. And then you go into a Spirit Robe or Mantle. Mantle doesn't give you the CCR, so I prioritize Spirit, as this does give you crowd control reduction. And obviously you would go this if, you know, you have a lot of CC, as it's passive, does a shockwave. And then you go into an E-staff, and this build is really good. I like this build a lot. Obviously it's more of like a glyph build, but you know, this build is mainly to keep your team alive, set up, peel, stuff like that. Be tanky as hell. E-staff isn't necessary. But you know, I like these items, these glyph items better than regular items like Void Shield or Damaro, even though those items are very good on your Guardians. I think if you don't have a warrior or another assassin to, you know, build those items like a Void Shield or a Damaro, for example, then I think building those items here is going to be really good, depending on the team comp, of course. So you can always switch out for those as well, which is actually what I'm going to do. We're actually going to be doing a lot here. As there's a lot of things you can put here. So you can go Pridwin here. Pridwin is a very good item, gives you cooldown protections, and it gives you that glyph option. You got Stone of Binding for those gods that can proc CC a lot. Doesn't even have to be hard CC either. It can be slows. Onis is going to be super good as well, for if you want to be tankier. It's a little bit more of a selfish item, but still very good. Shoguns is okay. I don't really necessarily like this item as much for a Guardian, but I think Shoguns is still fine. And then obviously you have Damaru, and like I said earlier, your Void Shield. I mean, there's so many things. Like I said earlier with the Assassin build, there's so many things. And then one other item that I don't see a lot of people talking about is Mystical. I think Mystical Mail is super good. Especially if you have a god that has CC. I'm sorry, reduction in prots. Mystical Mail does magical damage per second, and I think it's a very good item, especially, you know, with like a Stone of Binding, for example, which will reduce their protections, or like certain gods like, I don't know, Bake, who can like stick to them. You can use Mystical Mail as another item for that. Or if you're Guan Yu, for example, you can use your 3, I think, to Prot Shred, which will allow Mystical Mail to do even more. So, you know, obviously this is a Guardian build, but that's just an example. Ares obviously is very good with Mystical because it's an aura. Yeah, but Mystical Mail is a pretty solid item as well. But you know, if you were to switch out some of these items, you know, you could get rid of Spirit Robe. Let's get rid of Spirit Robe. You could go after your Eldritch Dagger. You could go into a Pridwin. You could go into your Glyph Pridwin. I'm not going to build that here, but pretend this is upgraded Glyph. You have max CDR. You can go into an E-Staff after that. Or if you have like enough CC, you can go Stone of Binding here. And that would be very good. Oh, obviously you want to go your alternate timeline. Alternate timeline, always 100% for your Guardians. So let's actually just do all this. Make sure we have this. That. Let's just do that. That. Pridwin, and then Stone of Binding. So like this build would be super good. Max CDR. You have so much damage potential, protections with Stone of Binding stuff. Like, you know, obviously this isn't just for Ares. Ares is a different, this is just a different thing. But generally speaking, and you know, if you didn't want that, if you wanted to actually, if you actually wanted to not build, you know, Amulet of the Stronghold, you wanted to go Damaru or Void Shield, you go Void Shield. I'm sorry, after you go, so then you go Void Shield, then Relic Dagger. You could go into a Spirit Robe, and then you can go into Stone of Binding, for example. You can go E-Staff here. So there's so many things. I mean, you can honestly even go something like this. You could go Gauntlet into I just had a brain fart. You could go Gauntlet into like Amulet, then you can go Eldritch Dagger, and then you can go Void Shield too. Or if you want to be even more tanky, you go Void Tomorrow. I mean, there's so many things you can do. It's one of the good and bad things about Guardians and Warriors that build tanky, because there's so many things you can do with so much options, so many things can change in the meta. But at the same time, it kind of gets convoluted in terms of like what you want to specifically try to build. I think the main things you want to prioritize is building items. The items that you always want to build. Actually, let me unclick that. The items that you always want to build here, just to be as clear as possible. Every other item can be dependent on the team comp. Is you always go Sands of Time into alternate timeline. That is always going to be an item you're always going to be building right now. Gauntlet's going to be another item that you always build, and then Eldritch Dagger is going to be an item I think you. It's just too good. These items are just too good right now. to not go. And I think that these items these items right here are going to be super important. After that, really, it just depends on, you know, what you're feeling at the time. If you want to have, let's say you're going up against physical defense gods, you want to go Sands, Gauntlet, and you want to be able to reduce, let's say it's a double warrior team comp, and you don't have a warrior and assassin that can build void on your team to counter that. You can go void shield here, go Eldrix, and then you can go into a spirit robe, and then go into a stone of binding, or you can go ethereal staff. Basically, your last 3 items are probably most likely going to be spirit robe, mantle, Pridwin, or e-staff most of the time. Obviously, Oni's, hunters, shoguns, mystical, and void will be earlier in the build, but you know, items like the builds like this, just make sure that you build Sands, Gauntlet, and your Eldrix, and then everything else can be very much dependent. But yeah, this was your Guardian path for your new Guardian build. That's basically it for the Guardians, but other than that, I think that's it. We're gonna go on to the Warrior build now. Oh yeah, I also meant to say that, like, you know, just before we go into the Warriors, I lied, we're not going to the Warriors. One thing I've been also seeing in the meta a lot is building Pridwin a lot earlier, so you can go Gauntlet, Pridwin into Eldritch Dagger. This will give you so much cooldown right here. And then you can honestly go into a Spirit Robe, Stone of Binding, or like a Stone of Binding Mantle or Spirit Robe, or even an E-Staff, for example, and this gives you max CDR. So, I mean, there's so many things. You can build items so much earlier as well. I've been seeing the Pridwin earlier as well, too. So, it's just another item I've been seeing as well. But on to the Warriors. All right, now we have our old Warriors build. We're going to go ahead and build that first. So, you go into Warriors Axe. Then we're going to go into a Gauntlet. And depending on what you used to do, you could go Earring here. I'm not going to put that there. But that was always that old build there. Glad Shield. And then, because this is the most recent one, you know, Oni's was really good. We're just gonna go ahead and go Oni's, although Genji's was really good. Oni's specifically on Kukulkan, even though we're not doing it specifically on Kukulkan, it's a general build, was really good here. And then after that, we'd go into a Pridwin for the cooldown. That's not how you spell Pridwin? The E, damn, I didn't know. And then your last item would either be a Heartseeker or a Stone of Binding. You had also other flex picks if you wanted, like a Arc Druids, for example. But basically, this was your build. This, that, and the Oni's, Pridwin, Heartseeker. And that was basically your build. Obviously, you go into Sundering. Sundering was always there, too. Build that as your last item, and then that would be basically your build. And this build is still pretty solid. Like I said, not a lot of things change. I think the only things that change, like I said earlier, is your Glad Shield and Oni Hunters are going to be changed a little bit. Not really Onis, though. I think the only thing that really changes is your Glad Shield. Glad Shield is still pretty good, but I think other items are going to be better. And obviously, I think, in my opinion, Gauntlet can be interchanged for Blackthorn. But this was your old build. I still think this build is still pretty good if you want to use this one to prioritize this one, but let's go ahead and go into the other warrior build. All right, so this is the new warrior build that I like to go. Like I said earlier, I'm just going to go ahead and place this here. I like to go Blackthorn on warriors, and I'll give you an explanation in a second, but it's very similar to assassins. Let's go ahead and... Uh-oh, things happening. Warriors. And then obviously still have your Gauntlet. Still a good item. Such a good item still. But yeah, I like going Blackthorn. I like Blackthorn Hammer early for a lot of warriors because it gives you that good health. Gives you mana, MP5, or cooldown, which means you never run out of mana. And some decent power because warriors are exceptionally strong early game. So this item synergizes really well with them early game, like I said. Also, with class passive being nerfed, you can kind of get away with this as mages and hunters are nerfed decently, making your early game as a warrior even better in my opinion. But I know it's pretty expensive, being $23.50, and not a lot of people like this item because it's lackluster in their opinion. But I'm a Blackthorn Hammer fan as much as other people aren't. So you don't need to build this item whatsoever. So if you don't like this item, you can go Gauntlet or go straight into a build instead of, you can skip Gauntlet and go straight into a build depending on what your team comp is. But But yeah, so that's basically similar to an assassin type build that I was talking about earlier. Actually, I think it should be fine. But yeah, actually, we're just gonna go ahead and skip Kukulkan here because I think Kukulkan has a lot of fucking effects that's going on that I don't really like. We can go with Bologna. We're not looking at that. Don't look at that. All right. So like I said, you have your Warrior's Axe, then you have your Gauntlet, generally a general build here. Gauntlet of Thieves. You still have your Blackthorn, generally speaking, not for your AA, your auto attack gods. Don't do that. But one thing I also wanted to point out is Runeforge. Runeforge Hammer is really good on those warriors. You would obviously go for instead. You'd actually build this item instead of your Blackthorn. So let's say you have a Shiva or a Horus or something like that. I think Runeforge, or even an Erlong. Erlong is really good with Runeforge, surprisingly. I think Runeforge is going to be your best bet over Blackthorn. I think Runeforge is better than Blackthorn, generally speaking, because it has a glyph. But Runeforge is going to be a substitute for those gods that have a lot of CC instead of Blackthorn, just to make that clear. But let's get into the actual build. So if you want to go the Gauntlet of Thieves route, you'd go Warriors, Gauntlet, and then, in my opinion, I think you should almost always go Void Shield. Void Shield on your not Plona, on your Warriors is super good because, I mean, you're getting 10% pen and you're a warrior, so you're doing more damage to your squishies, to your tanks, especially if you're going up against like a double warrior or like a warrior assassin. You definitely want to build this item for the most part. And then, like I said, Oni's is really good. Keep in mind, this isn't a Bologna build. This is just a general build. I know there's Bologna's here, but Oni's super cheap item for that. You don't really need to prioritize a lot of the glyphs. Those glyphs you can do if you're like a solo warrior, but generally speaking, you're not doing that unless, you know, you're like a Shiva or a Horus. You can still do it with other gods. I don't think it's that great. But after that, oh, I just hold on. All right, I lost my place. That's all it was. Next item we're gonna go into is a Pridwin. Pridwin is very good here. I mean, it gives you another glyph or an option for a glyph, and it gives you that cooldown that you so desperately need in this build. And then you know, your last item can be a lot of things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your last item can be a lot of things. That either being let's just pick one item here. So let's just do Heartseeker. Heartseeker is going to be pretty rad here. And this is your build if you go Gauntlet. I don't like this build as much. You still can go Gauntlet, but I think it wastes a space for other options. But still, Gauntlet's still very solid. But this is basically, like I said, your old build. It's very similar. The only thing you change is Void Shield, like I said. And then that's basically your build. I'm going to give honorable mentions in a little bit. But another build that I like to, or the other build that I prefer more is skipping Gauntlet. I think Gauntlet you skip for warriors, especially if you're a double warrior and you want to do more damage. Or a Guardian, honestly. I've been seeing a lot of Guardian Warrior mages or Guardian Warrior hunters. And then so you would do Warrior's Axe, skip Gauntlet, go Void, Oni's, Pridwin, and then you would go into, let's just put Heartseeker right here so it makes it more clean. Then you would go into a Spirit Robe. I think Spirit Robe is good right here as well. Obviously you would go Mantle if you'd wanted to for the passive. But then you would go Spirit Robe and Heartseeker, and I love this build. I just think skipping Gauntlet and then going straight into a Void Shield, Oni's, Pridwin, and a Spirit Robe just give you so much potential here, and I love it. Rather than the Gauntlet, which I still think is good. But I think I like this build a little bit better because you don't really need Gauntlet, and as warriors, you want to make sure you get your early game online, as that's when they thrive, in my opinion. So that is this build. I prefer more. Now, what I actually prefer a lot more, I know I'm saying that a lot, I like this build where you go Blackthorn. So you would in this build you would go Blackthorn, you would skip Gauntlet because I don't think Gauntlet you need if you go Blackthorn. Then actually you would go straight into a build, in my opinion. So you would go into a gauntlet, then I'm sorry, Blackthorn into a Void Shield, into your Onis, into your Pridwin, and then into your Spirit Robe, right? So you got your Spirit Robe, you got everything, basically the same exact build. And then you eventually sell your Blackthorn for your Heartseeker. And then that rounds out your build there. It makes it to where your Blackthorn Hammer actually is a better spike than, let's say, Void Shield and Gauntlet. Again, it's a lot more expensive. I understand if you don't want to do it, but I like doing that. I think that thought process of mine is, I think it's good. I just love this item for what it gives, even though it's a little expensive. And then that sort of rounds out the build. It's basically the same exact build that I said before. It's just that you get Blackthorn Hammer, which means you get a little bit more of that spike early, which means you delay a little bit of your Heartseeker a little bit later, and your Spirit, you delay an item later, basically, for this build. So I can understand why you wouldn't want to do that, but I still like the Blackthorn Rush for me. You don't have to do it. You can do the Gauntlet build, like I said earlier, or this one. But let's go into some honorable mentions. These are just going to be your general ones. Breastplate of... Oops. Come on, I hate this. Oh my god. Jesus, I couldn't fucking... Alright, Breastplate of Determination. I'm not going to put it there, though, but you know what I mean. And then Amulet of the Stronghold are going to be items that are very good. You still have your Mystical... This is basically just copy and paste from your Guardians. Mystical Mail is going to be very good, like I said, on your Guan Yu, for example. Tomorrow is still going to be very good, even though you don't do the passive well. You can still, if you have a Guardian and a Mage on your team and you're the Warrior, you can build Void Damaru in place of this Onis right here, and you can have your team do more damage. It's not all about what you're doing. It could also be what your team will allow you to do more damage of if your Guardian doesn't already go Void Damaru. I don't want to stack up on these twice because I don't think they stack. In fact, I know they don't stack. As they didn't before. And then yeah, that's basically it. I mean, you still got Glad Shield. Glad Shield's still a very good item. You know, you still have Shoguns if you wanted to. I mean, there's so many items you can do, like I said. But this build right here, I like the most. You interchange Gauntlet with Blackthorn in this build that I like. But this build right here is super, super good. I think Void Shield is super, really just like a staple item you can always build, and I think it's going to be a very long-lasting item unless they change it, that I think you're always going to want to build on your Warriors. And if you don't want to build it, you still got Breastplate, you still got Glad, Mystical, things of that nature. And Oni is the same way. I think Pridwin's still going to be good. Spirit Robe, Mantle, always good, super good on them. And then Heartseeker for your ability base. But that is going to be your general ability base Warrior God. I'm going to go into an AA build, and then that'll wrap up everything. AA meaning auto attack. Alright, now this is like a 2-hour long video, so I know I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Gotta update the masses. So this is gonna be your AA build. Now, we have below, so this is actually good. We're gonna go into an axe, very similar to everything else. You go into a axe. Instead of going into a gauntlet, you're actually gonna go into a Berserker's Shield / Phalanx. Now, when you build these items will depend on the team comp you go up against. So Berserkers will be good against gods that you're not going up against that isn't a hunter. If you're going to go up against a hunter or a god that has a lot of auto attacks, let's say you go up against a Bellona and Osiris, for example, Phalanx would actually be very good. If you go up against a hunter, Phalanx would be really good. Berserkers is going to be the item you just build, generally speaking, for any type of team comp, really. But Phalanx is just better for those AA build. Are AA enemies, so you want to make sure you pay attention to that. But Berserkers, Shogun's got a buff in terms of his attack speed. It lost its cooldown, but Shoguns are still very good, still built a lot. And then, interesting enough, if you've seen the Deathwalker build, I've actually been liking picking up Xe, especially with its Envenomed. And if you don't even want Envenomed, for example, oops, where's that? N-E-N. Oh my god. Envenomed. Fucking hell. Alright, Envenomed. Envenom Executioner with his passive. If you don't want to go that, you can go the other Executioner too, or you don't have to upgrade it yet. But I like Xe, this item. If you've seen this slot, I mean, if you've seen a Deathwalker build, Xe is super good on like all those gods like Bellona, Osiris, Erlong, who else is there? Amma. Very good item to go up. I think it's gonna be built a lot of the time. I like Spirit Robe because it gives you that mitigations Gives you crowd control reduction, cooldown, and basically both of each protection. Super good item. Very, very cheap for what it gives you. And then your last item, this will just be a general thing. So you can go Kins here. I like going Kins here. Makes you a little bit squishier, but with Kins and Xe, and you're still very, very tanky with the build that you have. Obviously, you would go into Active Animosity because you do have a decent amount of health. This is a very good build. I like this build a lot. This one right here. Now, a lot of this will depend on who you are, because depending on which AA god you are will depend on which items you pick up. So the only things that really change are Onis, Glad Shield, and then Arc Druids. Arc Druids is a very good item. Pridwin, specifically on gods like Bologna that have that can work decently with cooldown, or Osiris actually. And then last but not least, an item like Stone of Binding. And I almost forgot, you can pretty much go Mantle here as well. Mantle is the other option here if you have a lot of CC with against Spirit Robe. So like this build right here, I actually like a lot on Bologna. The only thing I'd probably change is the Spirit Robe for Pridwin. I think Pridwin cooldown on her is really good, so wanting to get that online is good. You can honestly even get rid of Kins for a Spirit Robe if you want to be tanky. Actually, still a lot of damage. But let's say you're going up against an Osiris. Let's say you're an Osiris. A build that I would do instead, for example, would be a more mitigation type build. Osiris is a hybrid god with the ability to go ability based and auto attack based. So I like to do a mixture of both. I like to go into like a Glad Shield, into an Onis, and specifically with Osiris, he does have mitigations built into his kit. Xe is going to be good here. And then Spirit Robe will cap out your potential of mitigations. And then you can go an item like Kins. And this is a very good Osiris build. And then, yeah, I mean, you can always, like an Amma build would be very good with Arc Druids. So if you're building an Amma, you could go Berserkers, Shoguns, Xe. You could go Spirit Robe, I'm sorry, Arc Druids, and then Spirit Robe. Oh, I'm sorry, that shouldn't be like that. Wait, hold on, boys. So you go Berserkers, Shoguns, Xe, Arc Druids, and then a Spirit Robe, or you could go like a Kins here if you wanted to as well. I think Arc Druids is really good on Amma. Same with Pridwin as well. If you wanted to go, and you want to go Pridwin, not in that order, of course. You probably build Pridwin first, and then Arc Druids, for example. I mean, there's so many options here, but you know, depending on your god, those are some example builds. But generally speaking, I think on your auto attack build gods, I think going just like a general build, going Berserkers, Shoguns, Xe, Spirit Robe, and Kins is going to be very good on most of those gods. You know, even on Erlong, for example, which is popping up in the meta. You could go Runeforge Hammer, Berserker, Shoguns, Xe, Spirit Robe, and that would be very good too. So, you know, there's so many options here for AA builds. AA gods, auto attack gods are in the meta again, and I mean, I think that's basically it. That's going to be your warrior build. I think we did all of them. We definitely did warriors. We did assassins, guardians, mage, and hunter. So that is a lot of information. We can actually get rid of this. All right, so hopefully that was enough information for you to play Joust this season. You got your builds, you got your map update, and you got your team comp differences. So hopefully you can get some type of information out of that. You can even disagree with me. A lot of the things that I even prefaced it with Blackthorn Hammer. I mean, like, not a lot of people like Blackthorn Hammer, but I do. So you can disagree with me on that. But at the very least, hope you learned something, or, you know, confirm something in your mind about something that you thought was happening, but you didn't actually know, that you now can look at this video and be like, okay, so I wasn't crazy. This is actually the reason why this is happening. Stuff like that. But yeah, I'm planning to do more of these in the future. Hopefully it'll just be builds update. This video shouldn't be, I mean, it's long, but it shouldn't be as long as next time. So look out for those videos in the future. If you like these videos, comment, like, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feedback, like I said earlier, you can roast me if you want. You can roast me. But I generally think I know what I know. I think I know what I'm talking about in most situations when it comes to Joust and God's building. So, comment, feedback, like I said earlier, if you would like that. But other than that, I think that's all I have for you. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching.